that state of no thought. Well, how do you critically think about no thought? You know, I don't know. Or desired outcome from doing these?
Um, I think that if the members of our community have a better grasp on how they reach conclusions and the reasoning behind it,
Uh-huh.
and the understanding of the quality of the reasons that they're using, they can make better decisions that affect their behavior, which affects the rest of us.
Good answer. Yeah, I agree. So, are you branching out other than Olympia?
Well, we just went on a road trip down to LA
Oh, cool.
and met with some folks that do this down there.
So, is there a network established? Is there really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. If you go to my channel and go to any of my videos, there'll be links in the description to an online community
Okay.
and some other groups. There's like a Facebook group and stuff.
Okay.
I have my own Facebook group,
Uh-huh.
Olympia one,
Uh-huh.
that was originally supposed to be like an in-person meetup for
Gotcha.
people that were interested in this kind of thing.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and I was just gonna have local people on it,
Mm-hmm.
but then COVID, nobody was able to kind of meet up, so I just opened it up for
Mm-hmm.
anybody on the planet.
Yeah. I've got your channel saved to favorites, but what's it called again?
Sound Epistemology.
There we go. Yeah. Okay.
There's
I've got
yeah,
it.
it's
I
this
just
guy.
have to look for
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I love the topic. Yeah, I don't know. Pick something.
There's topics, there's questions.
Yeah, I'll go with what's the biggest problem no one's talking about, right? And I don't know if that sounds kind of absolute, but
Or did you since our last interview,
yeah.
were you able to think about any of
Geez, I
the
don't remember any of that.
Yeah, it was about multiple realities, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Have I thought more about it?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't specifically gone after that as a area of specificity. I think maybe with the exception of intentionally altered states of consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that only tends to reveal more in the way of grounding of that as it's a personal experience, but it's still as a truth. And I think the more people that you talk to, as this whole realm of psychedelics and therapeutics and all this is more and more coming to the surface, I think there's more and more corroboration of the nature, at least in part, the nature of it being awareness of multiple realities, and that we've got a toe in the water in one that we have a shared, whether it's an illusion or a shared conviction that three-dimensional reality is one of many, but this is the one that the majority of people seem to agree upon.
And psychedelics
Open a door to the idea that there's much more beyond that, we may not be relatively tuned into on a daily moment-to-moment basis, but that it is there. And not to limit it to psychedelics. I think you can reach a similar awareness, and I hesitate to call it conclusion because it's very fluid. But I think there's the realm of meditation, there's breath work, there's, now looking at ice plunges and that type of thing as activating similar centers in the brain that corresponds to consciousness that are operating on similar levels.
Have you tried the sensory deprivation tank?
No, I've not, and I want to. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of feedback about that, but it sounds awesome. Yeah.
What do you think happens with psychedelics? Like, what actually is happening when somebody takes psychedelics in terms of, like you said, opening doors to the idea of other realities existing? Like, what can you take me through the what physically is happening?
Well, I mean, there's a point at which the physical, it's like the blood-brain barrier in a way. It's like where those things meet, and that there are physical and chemical counterparts to the consciousness element of expanded awareness that take place. So yeah, there's the ingestion of whatever it is, whether it's psilocybin or LSD or whatever it is, and that triggers a corresponding chemical response that affects our the chemical components of our thought process, really. So there are synapses firing all the time, and the idea that there are these external substances that affect the way that occurs, and it's also the way that occurs depending on the individual, their own biochemistry, the set and setting, their intention. All of those things combine to reach a point in a given individual that they may experience a reality that is quite different than they're accustomed to, and that may indeed serve to shed light on the reality that they're accustomed to and question beliefs, so on. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think so. There's a chemical response that affects the blood-brain barrier.
Well, it's like at some point there's that trigger, that mechanism on the physical level, on the chemical level, in terms of how it affects your actual physical brain, and there's a crossover. It's like where does our consciousness enter the picture as it corresponds to our actual physical brain? What is that? The cosmology that takes place, is that can you really put a finger on what that is? We're always thinking, whether we're asleep, awake, whatever. The brain's always functioning. But is thought the fullest extent of that? I mean, it's become almost cliche, but it's also, there's an element of it that's accurate, that as you think, so you create. We are constantly creating by virtue of, okay, I decided to go for a walk today. Here I am,
You created that?
Yeah.
With your thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay. When you say create in this context, what do you mean by create exactly?
You're setting up circumstances by virtue of the trajectory of your thought that yield physical results.
Okay. Would you say it's the actions that we take, or is it just
what comes first, though?
Okay, so
do you have to think about grabbing your pen and using it? Is that a thought? Or is that an involuntary action just based on habitual physical
I see what you're
performance?
saying. Thoughts are required to take the action, and
There's,
that's what affects reality.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Is there anything that I do that I don't think about that also affects reality?
Oh, I think that it can work conversely just as in just as dramatic effect, and not, this gets back to you picking a topic or a question. It's like, the I think one of the single most pervasive um, instances of what's creating our collective reality, and without a whole lot of involvement of collective nature on a societal basis, is the relative absence of critical thinking, of actually questioning why are you believing what you're believing, or why are you accepting what someone else is believing as your reality without question. That I think that's become a pervasive issue, that, and in part because of where we are present time in this three-dimensional reality, with technology, with information, with the speed of so much in terms of what amounts to noise, and that we have almost now an unconscious stress response to that noise. We're not really we're not really taking time out from that to just sit with, okay, absent all that, who am I? What am I doing here? And why do I believe whatever the responses are, the answers to those questions, on a personal basis or on a collective basis? People to have, well, it used to be taught. There used to be taught in multiple levels of education in this country and elsewhere on the planet. Critical thinking was something that was a a study that was, supported. It's been totally eroded from the educational system, and you can go down as many rabbit holes as you want to as to why that is. But I think the absence of that is pretty apparent. Uh, when you have so much vying for your attention on a daily, moment-to-moment basis, that it just goes. It's like slipstream. You're in it. You're participating in it. You are, as far as the advent between a relatively short period of time, the advent of, first of all, the internet, the advent of cell phones, all of those things. It's not like, you can't draw comparisons in prior generations. What you can't draw a comparison is how compressed and how rapidly things have evolved, and that's also, I think, served to undermine any question of how, why it is, what direction it's going. Is that in our overall benefit or not? And if not, why not? All of those things, all of those facets of things that, and I'm not saying there's not, look at the technology here. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't have a purpose and a value, but in the absence of really taking the time to, at least question your own motivation in how you're using it, or how you're accepting the use of it, or,
Of technology?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and all the ways that has spun off in terms of the those in power. I hesitate to call it leadership, because I think that's really a misnomer any longer. It's really the power grab globally that we're dealing with, and I think that again is in part because we have really ceased to question those in power. There was such a long period of time, you know, golden age in the United States, post World War II, post Korean War, where, baby boom generation and all of that. It was like, hey, mom was home cooking meals and dad was out earning all of that stuff, that really kind of allowed a foundation of relative safety and relative peace. And I think that because the way things sped up so quickly in the following generations, I think that led to an element of complacency in terms of, well, we trust the government. Everybody makes mistakes, blah blah blah. Nobody's perfect, and you vote in one party, and so on and so forth. And now it's like uniparty all over the globe, and it's just it's an unquestioned pursuit of and implementation of power that has anything but the quality of life for the citizenry of this planet as its focus.
You sound like you value critical thinking.
I do.
How has critical thinking informed your views about multiple realities?
Um, I think it probably propelled me to explore um, altered states of consciousness, um, and the use of a variety of different materials to do that, but also the study of other um, platforms throughout history, the origins of religion and comparative religions, and the way these kind of substances have affected those belief systems throughout time. And there's more and more being discovered about this all the time. So it's like if there were, say, back in ancient Greece, the temples often supplied what was passed off as wine, but we come to find out now that there were several different mind-altering substances in that wine. So it's like this penchant, this seeking, this that's been at times supported by and then ostracized or almost criminalized by organized religion in various churches. It's always been there. There's always been this element of, is this all there is? Is this really all, all that's going on here? And if so, then why is there such an innate impetus to explore and determine whether or not that is the case?
So critical thinking has helped you uh, seek and explore.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had that seed planted very early on. I grew up. My dad was a Lutheran minister, and I rejected that whole ideology by the time I was 7 years old. It was like, sorry, not buying it, and that was like, heresy in my family. It's like, what do you mean,
Uh-huh.
but by the same token, it's like, you can see a couple of different tangents here, but you can see how, in part, organized religion has throughout a long span of time supported a kind of groundedness in terms of a social structure, similar to the family structure. And I'm not here to say that there aren't aspects of, pick a religion or belief system, that has been organized around a given church, synagogue, what have you, that don't have value. But I think that value is much more about how it lends itself to being in support of a cohesive, whether that's a congregation or the way historically the family fit into that structure. And those things also supported, a much more, I think, in the way of healthy cognition amongst all of the members of those societies. And now that we're finding that both family, as far as nuclear family, um, and organized religion, has been dismantled for the most part, and we're seeing side effects of that. We're seeing people grasping for identity and grasping for, okay, if the church is no longer something that I can really buy, as far as there's been so much, on the one hand to undermine that, whether that's Catholicism and all the activity with priests and all that stuff, whether it's that or the rejection of the family model, And what are the roots of that? There's all different opinions about that. Whether that was, the advent of birth control and free sex and all, and the women's movement, you name it. There's all these things that have been pointed to, depending on who you talk to, what your beliefs are about it. But bottom line is, all of these things have served, I feel, to fragment the society in a relatively short period of time. We've really seen this exacerbated highly in the last 15, 20 years, and on steroids the last 3 years. It was used, those things, to fragment and silo our social structure. It was used to separate people and to control people. And, the thing about the powers that be, so to speak, once they have grabbed X power, they're not going to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, again, back to critical thought along those lines. If that was indeed, a trial run, for instance, they now know what they can get away with and now know how to refine that further.
And through critical thinking, we should question that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a hypothetical
Sure.
about back to the multiple reality?
I don't know. I'm just making this shit up. I have no idea.
Let's say there are multiple realities,
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically.
Mm-hmm.
Could critical thinking help us find that out?
I think it's like you can use certain tools to approximate that answer, but when you're talking about elements that actually just they kind of take thought out of the process. In fact, I think that's one of the beauties of it. And again, it's back to, however you get there. But once you do experience that just realm of what I'll refer to as pure awareness, whether that's accomplished by way of a drug or it's by way of meditation or whatever it is, some people have had that kind, again, it's like it's such a lame term anymore, but people have had the experience of what has been called enlightenment just by virtue of being, in the middle of the forest somewhere and otherwise totally disconnected from anything else and just fallen into that state of awareness, like John Muir, all that. You go back to the Romantics and stuff, and it's like they didn't need to, like the wilderness was the equivalent of a drug in terms of where they were coming from and their appreciation of being one with the life breath of the planet.
It's like a big psychedelic.
Yeah,
All
really.
right.
Yeah. And I think that's part of, what you get to. It's like, I don't think psychedelics are something that lend themselves to abuse. I mean, certainly are people that have abused them, but it's, if you really take stock of that experience, it could take you a lifetime to digest what you have exposed yourself to, or what the inner workings of your own consciousness have allowed you to see, given that kind of state of being both unplugged and plugged in at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Critical thought about it is it's almost like, I hear what you're saying, but it's almost like it's almost mutually exclusive. It's like that state of no thought. Well, how do you critically think about no thought? I don't know.
How many realities do you think there are? Is there a number?
Well, we just crusted like 8 billion people on the planet.
Uh-huh.
That's a start.
Okay. So the amount of realities there are could be correlated with the amount of people that are alive?
Subject to their perception.
Okay. What's the difference between someone's perception and reality?
What they're perceiving is their reality. There's no real difference.
Okay. What's the best way to tell how many realities there are?
You set this stuff up 8 billion times, I guess, and ask that question. I don't know. And does it matter?
Does it?
Yeah. I mean, really? I mean, if there's, say there was only one other one, but it was exactly the opposite of what we're experiencing here.
Uh-huh.
For instance, I mean, it's like it. I think it serves acknowledgement of the idea that there are other realities than just what we're waking consciousness in this three-dimensional sphere that we're dealing with. I think it just the notion that you're open-minded enough to consider that this is not all there is widens your scope to just consider that. It's like we go find a unlight polluted stretch of the forest or the beach and look up. The idea that that isn't just mind fucking blowing in and of itself, you know, or the other extreme, look under a microscope. What do you see? That whole thing. I mean, for that cellular structure, who's to say there's not consciousness involved in that? There's a life force there. Who's to say that isn't a reality for that cell or that atom, that neutron? I mean, who's to say there's not conscious awareness in that just because we can't perceive it?
So that feeling of awe when you see stars and stuff that we can't necessarily explain, that raises your confidence that there are more realities.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have maybe one more question.
No worries.
If we were able to tell how many realities there were,
mm-hmm.
could that potentially improve our society?
Oh, heck yeah.
How?
Yeah. Well, I think there's it's like, for instance, there's it surfaces from time to time, and I guess it's become a little bit more prominently surfacing of late. The whole UFO thing, and alien visitation and so on. And just look at the fascination with that, and
mm-hmm.
regardless of what you happen to believe or not about it, it's like people have a drive to want to believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, again, where does critical thought enter that picture? In that, okay, so where's that motivation? Where's that drive coming from to want to? Okay, sky opens up right now and the mothership comes down. What is it that is anticipated with that? Is it benevolent, malevolent? If it's benevolent, are they here to save us? And then you get right back into that whole kind of habitual notion of somebody else, some other power, something outside of ourselves to take care of us. And I think the idea that we get in touch with the notion that we are, each and every one of us, as magnificent as anything that we can perceive out and about, around, under the influence or not, but coming into grips with that, and not just passing it off as some fantasy, but that we are indeed, every single one of us, immensely powerful beings. And we've also been subject to one hell of a lot of programming to suggest otherwise. And that's what I think, if there's a pivotal piece of critical thought, it's that. It's to question, wait a minute, pick somebody, Einstein, I don't care, whatever. you know, he recognized that. He recognized that, and he didn't allow any detractors. He did, you know, it's like, fine, I don't care. This is what I'm going all in here, you know. And it doesn't matter. I really don't think it matters what you focus that potent content of your own energetic life force on, but that you do. And that's something I think that if we want to like right the ship that is what's left of democracy and the three-dimensional reality, for one thing, or the nature of, you know, we're polluting the planet beyond recognition, whatever it is, that has to happen on an individual level, and that has to spread collectively, as we are each examples for each other, what can be done, not, you know, who's coming to, you know, take care of me next, or, you know, the government's going to bail us out, or whatever it is. That by example is what nothing can stop. Nothing. There's no external force. There's no, you know, billionaire power broker out there that can usurp that. And especially if it's internalized and it's really grounded on an individual basis. That, just like you're doing here, as far as the collective nature of your sharing what you're bringing to the table, it has the capacity to unite people in that idea and for them to take off with it. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge. But we've got to go, wait a minute. No, I don't think this is all there is. Or just, you know, staring at the, you know, mainstream media day after day and swallowing the lock, stock, and barrel, like that's reality. That's, I mean, again, it's like, you know, their propaganda is everywhere. But gotta see past it. Gotta go, you know.
Gotta think critically.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, Nathan. Anything else you want to say?
No, thanks for the opportunity and the great questions. That's I loved about the way you do this, and the way you kind of drill down and it's like I see more and more evidence of like, you know, whatever YouTube channels, long form interviews and things where there's honest debate. There's not just somebody comes in and they're just anchored in their own ideology and they're just looking to, you know, discover what their own preconceived notion of the conversation is, and it goes nowhere. But more and more you see, you know, it's like I've got to be discriminating about, you know, what I'm taking in, but there's truly such a place for that type of discussion that goes deep, and you really and you get to see once, you know, it's longer than a, you know, 4-minute news interview, you get to see where people are vulnerable and what, you know, you when it's in real time and it's relatively unedited, you get to see where people, they may have, you know, holes in what they're bringing or pronouncing, or what, you know, is their claim to fame. But the willingness to address those things, that's how we all grow. And, you know, it's like you're questioning wherever I'm coming from or wherever else sits in this chair next. That all lends to that. It's back to that whole realm of consciousness. And as we accept that, and as we're willing to, you know, go, wait a minute, I may have had that wrong, you know, and be willing to, you know, not only critically think about what's going on out there, but what is it I'm believing and why is that, you know? So, cool. Right on, man. Again, yeah.
That was great. Thanks
Thank
again
you.
for stopping.
Yeah, well, yeah. Hey, I needed a rest.
Cool. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you're. I'm glad you're still at it, and more power to you. No.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's really coming down.
you all.
support.
What's your name?
Veronica.
Veronica. Nice to meet you. And you?
Reed.
Nice to meet you.
Reed actually has a very successful YouTube channel
Right on.
doing interviews.
Cool.
I would definitely subscribe to his channel.
Okay.
It's called Cordial Curiosity.
Cordial
Do
curiosity.
you have any thingish?
I'll make a verbal note.
You can take one of these.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's his
Oh,
channel.
nice. Yeah.
He actually facilitated my first in real life interview on camera down at UCLA. So
Oh, cool.
kind of.
All right. Are you here locally now or what? Cool. Well, welcome. What do you think?
Beautiful.
It is. Yeah. A lot of people move here after they come up in the summer.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little while ago. We're like, it's okay if you visit, but, just don't tell anybody how nice it is here.
Yeah. Hey, keep it up.
Thanks a lot.
Indeed.
I appreciate it.
You guys have a good rest of your day.
Take care.
Thank you.